Welcome back to the show. Before we get to my next guest, I just want to remind everyone, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and to my free newsletter, nataliebrunell.substack.com. That's where I publish a free weekly Bitcoin and economic news update that you can listen to or read in 10 minutes or less. I am also gearing up for the third annual Women of Bitcoin Brunch in Nashville at Bitcoin 2024. I'm so excited. We will be giving away free tickets. And this year we're hosting a raffle at the brunch to raise money for women in distress. You can actually support the cause. Watching this show, you can donate via the QR codes on the screen. And if you use my favorite Lightning wallet, Speed, they will match funds up to $3,000. We're going to be giving away fun items like block clocks, cold storage wallets, little hodler dolls, and more. So I hope to see you all in Nashville. And now it's time for the show.
The dollar will dramatically lose its purchasing power. The more they print, the more it gets diluted.
Who it's good for is the people at the tippy top.
Because in order to keep the system going, they have to keep printing money.
And Bitcoin is that tool that allows us to beat the money printer.
Bitcoin is powerful in a way that is money that does not discriminate.
Bitcoin is built by the people for the people.
We're in a phased transition of society. It's more than a financial revolution.
Government fiat currency is not just money. It steals from the poor and gives it to the rich.
If you don't have the choice of how you spend or save your money, you don't live in a free society.
If you have cell phones and a smartphone, you can have your bank with you everywhere.
You can be anywhere in the world and there's an ability to transfer it or use it. That's a huge advantage.
And that's why I think that the magic of the Bitcoin is.
I'm excited for the future of Bitcoin because we're just really beginning to understand the advantages of it.
Bitcoin economically arms everybody.
Bitcoin is a means to fight tyranny, to fight corruption.
A central bank can be a place of great mischief.
My perspective is that Bitcoin does fix everything.
Bitcoin does represent freedom.
Bitcoin is truth.
Anyone can be a part of the Bitcoin economy. It's like a good church.
Because it's an ethical ideology, there are many people that feel very spiritual about it.
I think that Bitcoin has those characteristics to be not just the most Islamic form of money, but the most Jewish and the most Christian form of money as well.
Bitcoin is just another step in the technological development of how we can serve God better.
It is trying to remove politics from money.
Bitcoin can make the world a better place.
And there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Welcome back to the show. Joining me this week is Brian and Kelly Estes. Brian is the CIO of Off the Chain Capital, and Brian and Kelly are co-lead executive producers of God Bless Bitcoin. You have to see this documentary. We just played the trailer for you, so I'm getting so excited, and I'm so honored that I was a part of it. So thanks for joining me today here in St. Louis, your hometown.
That's right.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so before we get all into the movie, I just want to hear your backstories because I love learning how people got into Bitcoin. I know you got in because of him, so let's start with you, Brian. How did you end up working in Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I guess it was back in 2014. I saw Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss on CNBC. They were talking about Bitcoin with Andrew Ross Sorkin, and it was $98. And I thought it was like a pump and dump scheme. I just thought it was a total scam. And so I put it on my watch list just to see what it would do. And I watched it go from $98 to $1,200. And I never owned it. I was just watching it. During that time, Congress held hearings on whether or not they should outlaw Bitcoin back in 2014. The IRS set forth their taxation rules on Bitcoin back then. And I just watched it run to 1,200. And then Mt. Gox got hacked, which was the largest exchange in the world. And I watched it crash from 1,200 down to 300. And I've always been a value investor. So when it went down 80%, I was like, well, maybe I'll see what this is all about, right? See if there's some value opportunity there. And that's when I dove into it. I read the white paper and I didn't get it the first time I read it. And I read it again and it kind of made a little bit more sense. And the third time I read it, it just clicked. I just understood how this technology was going to allow us to rebuild the financial system and get it off the internet which was built incorrectly 30 years ago. When we built the internet 30 years ago, we built it on top of the banking and credit card system, which is not a peer-to-peer system like the internet's supposed to be. And so when I realized that, I talked to Kelly and I was like, this is something I have to get involved with. And I couldn't sleep for a week. I laid in bed, I couldn't sleep. She could feel the heat vibrating from my body.
I did.
And then finally I said, I want to sell my business. I was a financial advisor at the time. I sold it to Wells Fargo Advisors. I took all that money. We paid off the house. We funded the kids' college education. And what was left over, I started helping build blockchain companies back in 2014 and 15. And that's how I got into it.
Wow. And you were probably like, what is he doing?
So that is very typical of him and the life we have built together. He gets interested in something and then it becomes an obsession. And then Brian is an all-in kind of guy. He is not just, let me just put a toe in. He's like, I'm jumping all the way, deep dive. So when he said that he wanted to sell a very steady, lucrative business, and we have kids who we need to pay for their college, and just you're in the middle of life, I just said, okay, I can get behind it, and I just said, here's how much money you need to have in the bank, and here's what needs to be done, and then whatever happens, I'm cool. So it was a typical Estes.
It was a negotiation.
Negotiation.
Coin Stories is proudly brought to you by Bitdeer, a global leader in disruptive technology for Bitcoin mining and AI. As a publicly traded leader, Bitdeer boasts a massive 900 megawatts of operational data center capacity and an additional 1.1 gigawatts under development across 3 continents, positioning Bitdeer as one of the most diversified and power-dense computing companies in the world. Bitdeer's leadership laid the groundwork for the original advancements in Bitcoin mining ASICs. It's really the only company in the industry with the track record and clout to disrupt the market again with groundbreaking new designs for the next generation of mining ASICs. Now, Bitdeer is leveraging years of expertise in data center and cloud management into high-performance computing through a recently announced partnership with NVIDIA. Join Bitdeer in reshaping the world of Bitcoin mining. Learn more at bitdeer.com and explore how they are pioneering the future today. So you're a teacher, and you have had experience with your students talking about this type of technology, and you're sort of like, okay, this must have legs to it if the younger generation is talking about it, right?
Absolutely. So he, of course, lays that bomb out on me. Okay, we're going to sell the house or sell the business, and we're going to go all in. Okay, and then about 3 years later, I have a group of 8th graders who are they download an app called Sweatcoin, and they found it on the cap of a Pepsi bottle at the gas station. And they were all, Miss Estes, this Sweatcoin, I'm going to be a millionaire on this Sweatcoin. These are 8th grade kids. And I'm like, I don't even know what to say to you all right now, but okay. So.
Did they remind you of him?
No, well, a little. I don't think that at the time I had even associated a Sweatcoin with Bitcoin, because he was all Bitcoin, right? So I don't think I even associated the two until I had them explain it to me. And so basically a Sweatcoin was you downloaded the app, and for however many steps you walked a day, you could earn Sweatcoins. And so they were begging me to take their phones, because, in the school you're not allowed to have your phones with you. Could we please take our phones on the field trip? We'll just keep them in our back pocket or in our backpack. We got to earn these Sweatcoins. We'll be walking all day. You know how much money we can make.
Oh, my gosh.
And so, of course, the school says, no, you cannot take phones on the field trip. So I smuggle them in my backpack. And
earned their Sweatcoins.
So I earned their Sweatcoins that day for them because it was that important. But I did realize at the time, okay, they're on to something. And at that time, those were the kids who were growing up in generational poverty. So for the past 15 years of my life in education, I've been working with people who have grown up in poverty, but that group was specifically generational. So 95% of our kids in that school had experienced generational poverty, and 100% were on free and reduced lunch. So I realized that they didn't understand our financial system. They didn't understand how money worked, but they knew that they would work hard to get it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I'll earn these sweat coins. Yeah, I'll walk, whatever I need to do. So at that point, that's when I switched gears from being a teacher in the classroom to running a graduate support program for the kids at that school to help ready them for their next step in their education and their life, which is, I tried to break the cycle of poverty through education. So I included almost an entire quarter, so almost 8 weeks on financial literacy to help them and their families understand. So I would bring the parents in on Saturdays and we would have seminars talking about how our financial system works and the difference between spending and saving and how you accumulate wealth. Well, if you're a wage earner, you don't. And that is when I realized it's going to be Bitcoin that helps these communities the most because it allows them to have a store of value that our current system doesn't. And that's when I went all in on Bitcoin.
Wow. Well, I mean, financial literacy is so important. I can't believe how little we get taught in schools, no matter where you're from, about this system. And what you just said literally is the message of your movie.
Yes.
This is what is going to provide hope for so many people around the world. So let's talk about that. I mean, tell me a little bit about the genesis of God Bless Bitcoin. Why even create this movie?
I think it was probably both. Why don't you start with this one, because you were the one who came to me with the idea, and then I jumped in.
So 4 years ago, I read a book called Thank God for Bitcoin. So Jimmy Song, Robert Breedlove, Gabe Higgins, and a few other people wrote that book, and it was the Christian-only view, and it just made me curious, like, well, what do the other religions say? And so I started looking into it, the Muslim religion, Hindu, Buddhist, and Mormon, and I just got curious, and then I kind of dropped it. But I had this like inner voice like talking to me, like, you need to tell this message. Like, you learn so much about this. Why don't you, And I don't know how to write a book. I don't know how to make a movie, and so I just kind of ignored it, and I ignored it for 2 years, and finally the voice got so loud I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And so I asked Kelly, I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to tell a story. I don't know how to make a movie. Can you help me do this? Because she's a teacher. She develops curriculum. She has her master's degree in education. She could help me educate, take this, what's in my head, and make it so people could see it. Yeah. And so I asked her to buy in on helping me do this. And we spent the last 2 years doing this. And, and now it's finally finished, and we're excited to get it out so we can show the world.
Well, let's go deeper. I mean, why this message for the world? Why did you want to explore other religions and how they view Bitcoin and why we need a moral form of money? Because today we've grown so secular. And prior to this movement to separate money from the state, we separated church from the state, right? And a lot of people almost want to push religion aside. Why did you want to lean into it?
Well, I would say the reason I agreed to make the movie was exactly what I talked about. I understood that it was a more moral and ethical form of money. And I worked with the communities that are most hurt by our current money, which I do believe is immoral. So we wanted to lean into that part of it, and the best place to understand ethics and morals are the sacred scriptures, so the Bible, the Torah, the Quran. What do these teachings say about how we're to use money and how we're to interact? Because really that's all money is. It's a way for us to exchange value that I have with value you have. It's communication. That's all it is. And so we wanted to do that, and that's why I think religion should always be, and I don't even want to say religion, I think it's the sacred texts. Those should always dictate how we interact with each other. Those are the rules. That's just the base layer. That's the basics that we should do with each other, is what do they say about fair and equitable treatment of each other?
So I know people are going to explore this by watching the film, but can you give a couple of takeaways? When people watch, they're going to hear from religious leaders from the Christian faith, Islam, Judaism. Is there something that is in common with all of them that relates to Bitcoin, and what is it?
Yes. So I think that was one of the biggest things that both of us learned was, unfortunately, I mean, I grew up Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic school, all of it. And we were always taught, not just the Catholics, but I think we're all as as kids taught that our religions are different. Oh, they believe something different than you do. That's not the same. Oh, Jewish people don't believe in Jesus. They don't, so we're always looking at what's different about us. But if you actually talk to people from all of these religions, at our core, we are all the same. You should not steal from each other. You should not harm each other. You should make sure everybody has their fair share. All of that comes from their sacred texts, whether it's Buddhism, whether it is the Torah with Judaism, whether it is the Bible with Christianity. All of them say the same thing. And I think I know he'll talk about the Abrahamic God because that just sort of blew his mind. So I'll let you lead into that.
I grew up Baptist, right? And I didn't know the difference. When the small town, country town I grew up in, I didn't know any Jewish people. I knew one Mormon, who wasn't, Christian, or I guess he's Mormon's Christian. It's just a different form of Christian. There were Catholics and Protestants. That's who I grew up with. I didn't know any Muslims. So when we were doing the research on this, and I should be embarrassed I didn't know this, but I didn't know that the Old Testament is what Christians believe. It's what Jews believe. It's what Muslims believe. We all use the Old Testament. It's all the same. Mm-hmm. Where it splits off is in the New Testament. So that was my big revelation is, we all believe in the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not kill. And when we talk about Bitcoin solves one of those problems. Thou shalt not steal. When the government prints money, they're stealing our time and our energy and our talents. We spend time and energy to create money, but when the government just is able to print it, mm-hmm. It's diluting. Like Father Sirico talks about, it's like diluting the wine with water. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing when you print money. It's it's a sin, and so we wanted to explain why it's a sin in the movie.
Yeah, you dive into the fiat system, what's broken about it, essentially what's immoral and unethical about it. So what will people learn? Because a lot of people might watch this and not know anything about Bitcoin. And maybe they're not religious. Maybe they look at the title and they say, well, I don't know if I want to watch a movie like this. What do you say to them?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to I don't know a person alive who doesn't believe that it is wrong to steal, that it is wrong to harm people, that it is wrong to keep others down while, advancing yourself. Whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God, that's basic morality. Now, if they don't understand that maybe the morality came from the sacred text, then that's their choice, and I'm good with that. But I don't know anybody who can disagree with those basic tenets of how we are to treat each other. And those come from, for me as a Christian, the Bible, right? So I think that isn't even an argument. This is really about the morality of money and ethics of money. But because we believe in God and we are religious, we believe that that is a direct line from God. This is how you are to behave. This is how you are to treat each other. So for me, I don't think that's really an argument. And what we want to say about the fiat system is, open your eyes. I don't think people even understand what's going on. And I think that's really why you felt compelled to make this movie was, people don't understand why they can't afford groceries. They don't understand why they can't buy a home or just afford to live. They're working as hard as they can and they can't keep up. Why is that? Well, we hear about inflation, but what is inflation? It's not what I thought inflation was. I learned what inflation was maybe a year before making this movie, really understanding that it's the printing of money and the dilution of our purchasing power. That's inflation. For me, it's just every 10 years prices are going to go up. That's inflation. That's what I thought it was. And I would say a lot of people probably think that. And we want everybody to understand, no, it's not that. Here is what is causing you to struggle. Because I think people feel like it's their fault. What am I doing wrong? How many times have even you thought that? What am I doing wrong? Other people could, my grandparents could do this. My parents could do this. What's wrong with me? When you talk in the movie so beautifully about what it feels like as a millennial to be the first generation that won't be better off than their parents. That hit me so hard, Natalie. I mean, the millennials kind of get a bad rap, right? You are the whiny baby generation, blah, 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 and nobody can work with millennials. That's what was going on. But let's look at what your generation has gone through, right? 9/11, Columbine, and what that did to you in schools, and now the 2008 financial crisis, what that did to your families. And now the fact that you might not have hope that you'll ever be able to have the future that your parents were able to have or your grandparents. It's not your fault, right? But I think sometimes people wonder, what am I doing wrong? And that's my reason for wanting to make this, is it's not your fault. It's here's what's going on.
Well, I think that speaks to so many people. I think a lot of people wonder, what am I doing wrong? Why am I still so far behind when I work so hard? And until Bitcoin, I didn't appreciate all of these things, how inflation actually works, what it is, how the financial system works, and fractional reserve banking, and all the things that impact us on a daily level. But we're sort of, I don't know, we're not explained things by the media or in our schools. And we tend to kind of go inward and blame ourselves. And I'm grateful that I got to have that personal moment in your film where it has impacted whether I feel like I'm ready to start a family and dedicate more of my life. And in the religious text, it's like, be fruitful and multiply, right? I think you say that in the film. Definitely. But so many people are putting off or deciding not to have families because of the cost of living, because they think, oh my gosh, in the future I won't be able to afford the children or their education, healthcare, my retirement, the world is gonna, boil over. It's just all these very negative things that are causing people to not want to do the one thing that we're sort of here to do, right? Procreate, build, strengthen our communities and grow. So your movie basically says, no, we can do that through Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, it's if you go back to pre-1971 when we went off the gold standard, it was like that. We start the movie with the Brady Bunch, right? Back in the Brady Bunch days in the early 70s, you could have one person working, you could have the other spouse staying at home with the kids, and they had 6 kids, a maid, and a dog on one salary, right? But you can't do that anymore. Now you have both parents working, and they could barely afford to have one kid. And if you look at pre-1971, the average woman in the United States had 6 kids, and today it's less than 2. So and one of the reasons is you can't afford it, and so which is a direct contradictory to what's in the Bible. The Bible says, "Man shall leave his parents, find a wife, and then be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth," right? And we're not able to do that because of inflation, because of the money printer. And so that's one of the points we make in the movie, too, that we're not allowed to fulfill God's will because our money doesn't retain its purchasing power.
Well, sometimes I do wonder if I hadn't found Bitcoin where I would be, because I felt like I was a little bit in the hamster race, and I didn't know how much longer I would have to work in the news business that I was in, because even though it looks glamorous from outside, I was never making enough to acquire assets like a house, and I always felt like I was treading water. And Bitcoin is the one thing that gave me hope. And the message of your movie, especially, well, I won't spoil the ending, but it's really about hope. It's about this turnaround and this positive shift that we can make. So why is Bitcoin a moral, ethical money that we should turn to?
I've been talking a lot. I'll let you go.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay.
It's good.
So when you look at Bitcoin, we talked about, it can't be diluted. So that's one reason. It allows people to save for their future. Is another reason. But what's really important to me is that I think it helps prevent war. So when I was 16, I was in a car wreck, left my legs paralyzed. So the last 40 years, I've been in a wheelchair, a damaged body, right? And when I see people or soldiers coming back from these wars, it just, it hurts me on the inside, because I know what I've had to deal with for 40 years, and they volunteered to serve our country, and they were sent to these foreign wars, and they got killed, injured, maimed. When I was doing the research on Ukraine, which we have a little bit of that in the movie. There was a soldier who was being interviewed, and he had just gotten married. He was injured, and he was severely injured. And before he joined the Army, he was in a band. So they had video of him playing his guitar, being a rock star in Ukraine, and now he's in the hospital. Half of his face is just totally mangled. He lost one of his eyes. His hands are all fingers are missing. I think from here down it was missing on his other arm. Can't play the guitar anymore. He had just gotten married. He had this beautiful wife. And I sat there and I watched them being interviewed, and she said that I love my husband now more than before he got injured because he's so brave that, the struggles that he's going through. And I lost it. I didn't put that in the movie because, it was just, I couldn't find the right place for it. But yes, the morality of our system today is that, the government prints money. They use that to go fund these unjust wars to kill people. And that's not how it used to be either. The way it used to be was that if a government wanted to have a war, they would need the gold to pay for the war, or they would issue out war bonds, and people would volunteer. I will take some of my hard-earned money, buy your war bond to support the war. But they don't do that anymore either. What they do is they just print the money.
Right. If they ran out of money, they wouldn't be able to finance the war, but they never run out of money.
Right. They never run out of money. And so, by being on a Bitcoin standard in the future, I think it will prevent these unjust wars, and it will actually save lives, and we'll have a more moral and ethical system. And that's one of my number one reasons for making this movie, is to tell that message. Let's get on a Bitcoin system, prevent the governments from creating money out of thin air, and that defunds the war system, defunds the military-industrial complex that's out there.
I think that message is so powerful, and right now it's so needed. We have multiple wars being fought that America is sending billions and billions of dollars toward. And honestly, that story you just shared about the soldier, it makes me angry because the people who are making these decisions, they don't face these consequences. Their children are rarely ever lost. They're not the ones getting harmed, putting their lives on the line. It's innocent people who are maybe being patriotic, thinking that they're doing their duty. And instead, it's just all about these, usually closed door meetings where they're deciding who gets money, who gets territory. And so do you really believe that Bitcoin will strip them of their power and return us to a world that could be more peaceful? I mean, does it have that much power, especially given everything going on geopolitically in this world?
I think 100%. And it's not, we don't have to decide, is it dollar or is it Bitcoin? It's both.
And
you could have dollar and Bitcoin. And I'm not promoting the destruction of the U.S. dollar. What I'm saying is that you limit the amount of dollars that are distributed by backing our debt with Bitcoin. So a lot of people don't understand what that means. Let me explain a little bit. The way our debt used to be issued is that the government would issue out a bond, a U.S. government bond, and there was a covenant in that bond. And that covenant said you could repay the debt in dollars, or you could repay it in gold. And when we were on a gold standard. When we went off the gold standard in 71, in the mid-70s, Congress changed those covenants. And so now debt, our dollar debt, is backed by dollars. It can only be repaid in dollars. And what I'm promoting or advocating for, and Robert Kennedy supports this, he's running for president, is that start backing our debt with Bitcoin and precious metals again, like we used to have. And so you can't do it 100%, but you can start off with 1%. The covenant could say, when we issue out a bond, 99% of it gets paid back in dollars, but 1% gets paid back in Bitcoin. And the next year you make it 2% and then 3%. And then over the next 100 years, we get off this system that we've been on for 111 years, created by the central bank in 1913. And so it's going to take a long time. It's not something overnight, but over the next 20, 50, 100 years, we could definitely get off this money printing system. We could fully collateralize our debt, And that will allow us to defund the military-industrial complex. Because you'll have to have the gold or you'll have to have the Bitcoin to pay for the war if you want to have the war. If you don't have it, you don't have the war.
It's time for a quick break to hear these messages from my partners who make this podcast possible. Next up, Bitcoin 2024, the world's largest Bitcoin conference, is coming to Nashville this month. Join us for 3 amazing days of keynotes, panels, networking events, and my Women of Bitcoin brunch. The Bitcoin conference is where I launched my podcast 3 years ago. So you never know what can happen or who you can meet here. Head to b.tc/conference and use code HODL, HODL, for 10% off. Next up, Speed Bitcoin Lightning Wallet, one of the fastest growing wallets out there. Speed is a secure, low-cost way to send or receive Bitcoin instantly. It's super simple and scores high user ratings. You can even use it to shop gift cards of your favorite brands and earn rewards. Download Speed using the QR code on the screen or the link in my show notes and use promo code COINSTORIES10 to get 5,000 free sats. And finally, the why of Bitcoin is easy to grasp, but the how can be so confusing. The Bitcoin Way is a professional Bitcoin IT and security team offering personalized one-on-one support that guides you through cold storage, setting up nodes, inheritance planning, privacy best practices, and more. Don't take my word for it. Take 82-year-old customer Bill's.
Give the Bitcoin Way a try. You will be well on your way to owning and protecting the greatest money ever discovered.
Set up your 30-minute free consultation today. All right, back to the show. You mentioned RFK, and I feel like things have gotten so political and polarized. And I'm one of the people who I feel apathetic. I'm like, politics is not going to solve it. But we do have an election coming up. Is there a message from your film that can apply to that election when people are looking to 1, 2, maybe 3 candidates that could make the right decision? 2 of them have come out as pro-Bitcoin. 1 of them obviously still anti. But could that move us in the right direction?
I think so. And I think if we listen to what they say about Bitcoin, the 2 candidates who are talking about it right now, and see who seems to understand it more, make sure someone's not just using it, or one of them or both of them aren't just using it to grab votes. It's the same with any issue. What do you believe about it? And what are they saying? And, I think the first thing people probably need to do is understand Bitcoin. And hopefully the film will help them see how it can help them to gain control back in their lives and be in charge of, self-sovereign. I think it gives us that back, which we haven't had in a long time, and it would feel good. So hopefully the film can help them understand how Bitcoin can do that. And then, like every good educational piece, I'm hoping it makes people more curious. What else can I learn? Oh, that was interesting. I'd like to explore that. Let me see how that works. Maybe they like mining. Maybe they like the political side. Maybe they want to explore their religion more. We had one person who made this film with us who said prior to making the film, he was not religious, but he is now. He's found faith. Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with our film, but I'm hoping maybe there is somebody out there who will say, wow, that makes sense. Maybe I should look at that again. But Bitcoin is one of those issues. See what our presidential candidates have to say about how they want to use Bitcoin, what they believe about Bitcoin. The one thing I don't believe about Bitcoin that seems to be what everybody wants to talk about is how much money you can make in Bitcoin. To me, that's not the point of it. Of course, it's a place for us to store value, but it's not a place for me to get filthy rich at the expense of somebody else.
Right.
So I don't, if you hear that, run. Yeah. Run from that person, in my opinion, because they don't understand the real power of it. And I really do believe the power of it is to get us back to the way we were supposed to be interacting with each other. I know I keep coming back to that talking point, but I think that is the basis for a free and happy society, is when I say, hey, Natalie, you have a talent that I don't. Could I pay you for that talent because I really respect that in you? That's how money was supposed to be, is it was a way to reward somebody or to exchange value with somebody of something they had that you didn't.
Right.
And that allows us to show respect for each other, that allows us to admire each other, and it allows us to look at each other as humans rather than just something that you look straight through.
Right.
So I know that's a roundabout way of answering the question about politics, but look at what they're saying and see if you believe it.
No, it's a great point because there are so many symptoms of the broken system that we see.
Mhm.
And even though we're told we have free markets and capitalism, it really has been so manipulated that benefits the few at the expense of so many other people. And we do see more people trying to take advantage of that system because they see how other people have risen to the top, maybe in an honest way, maybe not. And they're more willing to sort of grift or do things that do compromise, I think, your values. But if you had a system at the base layer that was fair, accessible, neutral, I mean, just global for anyone to interact with freely, voluntarily, I think that who knows what we would be able to produce,
I don't know.
right, as humans. And
It'd be a new renaissance.
I think so. I really do believe that.
I do too.
So for people who just saw the trailer earlier, there are really big heavy hitters in this movie. I mean, Mark Cuban, RFK, Michael Saylor, Tim Draper. How did you get all these people to talk in your movie?
That would be my husband's vast network over the past 10 years.
Well, you found the religious ones.
I did. I researched them, but he's a super connector.
Yeah, I've been building blockchain companies for 10 years now, so just, I decided to call in a few favors, and just say, hey, we're making this movie about Bitcoin and ethics and morality and how it intersects with religion. Would you be interested in being interviewed? And, I would say about 80% of them said yes.
There were so many interesting analogies. Any that really stuck out to you or any particular moments where you were interviewing someone and you just go, wow, that's a great way to explain something?
I think my favorite was we were interviewing Michael Saylor, and if you've ever just listened to him talk, he can talk for a good 20 minutes on one question. Yes. And then the longer he talks, the deeper it gets and the more interesting. And he was talking about the morality. I think the question had something to do with the morality of Bitcoin or the religious side of Bitcoin. And he went into how Bitcoin could be a religion, and he named things that would be the altar. These would be your rosary beads. These would be, really? It was so fascinating, but it went on a long time.
Not all this made it into the final cut.
No, it couldn't, but we do on our app, we will have a section where you can see the full interview.
We need the extended clips.
Yeah, so that's the extended version. We're going to call it layer 2.
I love that. Well, and he always talks about the Immaculate Conception.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's beautiful. Yeah. What was it like working together?
Well, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
We've built several things over the last 31 years of marriage, but this is just a new thing we built. Yeah. So, it's up and down, right? I'm not the easiest person to work with. I'm very particular, and sometimes my patience.
His tone.
My tone.
He has bad tone.
I heard a lot like, you need to correct your tone. But yeah, so it's fun. We like building things together.
We do.
So either a house or a family or a movie, and we enjoyed it. We had fun.
So tell me about the process of distributing this movie and getting it out to as many people as possible, because you've decided to decentralize it, right? You've decided to give it away. Why and how?
Well, I'll let him talk about the mechanics of it because he's good, but the spirit behind it, which came from both of us, and we felt very strongly from the get-go that in the spirit of the Bitcoin community, it should be free to all. It should be open to all. It shouldn't just be for the people who can afford to buy it. And, so that was part of it. But also the Bitcoin community gave freely, just like you did. Hey, Natalie, do you want to spend a bunch of time helping us make a movie and maybe help write the narrator sections? And can you help? And your answer was absolutely yes, I will do that. People gave of themselves to make this because they all believe the same thing that we do, that we in this room do, that this could be a way to help the unbanked, to help people who have to cross borders to get to their freedom and need to be able to take their money with them, to help the poor. We believe that, so let's make it free in the same way that Satoshi gave us Bitcoin. Let's, as a community, give it to everybody, so that people know and can decide to opt in or not. Now the mechanics of it are up to this guy right here.
So it's gonna be if you go to godblessbitcoin.com, you'll find the movie there. We're also working with our partners, people that we interviewed. If they have platforms, they're gonna host the movie on their platforms too. So it'd be Twitter, Rumble, YouTube. So we're hoping to get it out as many places as we can. We're dubbing it in 7 different languages also.
Wow.
So Mandarin, Hindi, Russian, Portuguese, French, Spanish.
Are you going to do this through AI? Am I going to be talking?
No, it's real people dubbing.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh, wow.
So that's being worked on right now. Yeah. So we should have the dubbed versions.
It's old-fashioned dubbing.
Yeah, in about a month or so. And so people, we're covering 85% of the languages.
Wow.
Or spoken language in the world. And so our goal is 1 billion views. We want 1 billion people to see this message. So we figure there'll be, maybe 30 or 40 million people in the U.S., but then the other 900 million people are going to be worldwide. So we wanted to create it in their specific language so they could understand the movie. So.
What is it going to take to get people who don't know anything about Bitcoin to sit down and watch a movie like this? And I'm asking because I have a couple of friends who are creating different types of content within the Bitcoin space. One is also making a documentary, and they're just knocking on doors and they're not opening. And I don't know what it is about the market right now. I don't know if there's maybe a lull or people have more distrust because of what happened with SBF. But people, it seems like, aren't as open to the idea or message of Bitcoin right now. Have you found the same? And how are you breaking through those walls if so?
Yeah, we ran into that. I had a number of people that committed to doing the movie, and then after the FTX Sam Bankman-Fried issue, they backed out. And these are very high-profile people that didn't want to be associated with Bitcoin because Tom Brady's getting sued, and you have all these people who supported the crypto industry and who are now getting sued. And so they were like, our lawyers are saying, we're high-profile and we can't be involved with this.
Can you share any names?
Well, I can, but I don't want to.
We probably shouldn't. We probably shouldn't. That would not be nice.
But what they did tell me is like, after the movie comes out, I'll help tweet about it and promote it, and so that's what we're hoping for. So after the movie comes out, I'm gonna circle back with them, say, here's the movie, you don't want to be in, and if you like it, can you help us spread the word?
Yeah.
So
I think it's so important because online things can go viral. And so if it's available in so many places, there is that opportunity for a ton of people to see it, as opposed to when there are gatekeepers, right? And you have to go to a certain platform, or you have to go to a movie theater. I can't even tell you when the last time I went to an actual movie theater. But people, if they want that experience, will be able to do that too, right? At the Bitcoin conference?
At the Bitcoin conference, it'll be our premiere. So starting on July 25th, you can, if you're at the conference, you can go. It'll be playing at 11, 1, and 3 all 3 days, and you can go in and watch it for free. We will be there every day at 10 a.m., so I think press is lined up to come talk, and if anybody wants to ask us questions, we will invite the talent in the movie to be there, so if they're not speaking or they're available to come, they can be there. Yeah, we're trying to get the word out, so yeah.
So I'm going to speak for the person that's sitting in the audience watching this. They made it through the whole interview, thank you. And they're sitting and they go, I don't believe, though. I'm not a believer. I don't want to see a movie about religion or that has the word God in it. What do you say to them?
You can lead a horse to water, Natalie, but you can't make him drink. That's my grandma's famous saying, and that is the truth. So you can't force somebody to do something they don't want, and that's not my nature anyway. So my guess is I really do believe this, the people who need to see this movie will see this movie, and that's out of my hands. That's in God's hands. We made it because we felt compelled to. We are led by the Spirit often in our decision making. So if we feel like we're going to do something big, we pray about it. We prayed hard about this, and we still felt like we need to make it. So my guess is whoever needs to see this movie will see it, and I don't have to worry about it. It's not my problem.
And I don't think you have to be religious to watch the movie.
No.
It's about ethics and morals.
Right.
And, I think most people are ethical, moral people. And you don't have to be religious. You don't have to believe in God or Jesus to be ethical and moral. So, and that's what the movie is. It's based on ethics and moral. And we just go and take it a little deeper, and we want to, like Kelly said earlier, we want to dig down to layer one, Scripture, and use that as our, as our base to, for that morality and those ethics.
When I think about my life, past, present, and look into the future, I have wondered, oh gosh, if not Bitcoin, then what? Like if I hadn't found this again, I would sort of be worried for where I would be and how much hope I would have. Do you think that since it came at such an inflection point in our society with these massive amounts of debt, crisis, it seems like after crisis, do you think God brought us Bitcoin?
I don't want anybody to think that that was the title. We were very, very careful because I know enough about myself to know that I don't dare try to understand what God does or doesn't do. That's too big for me, and I have too much respect for God to dare to say that He brought this to us, or to even think that I might know what He's up to up there, right? But really, the title of that, I was the one who made the title, God Bless Bitcoin. And honestly, it's just almost like a little prayer. God, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. God, please bless this new form of money that maybe has the chance to bring that abundance that you so want for all of your people back to all of your people, and not just the ones who are benefiting from the system that we have right now. God, can you do that? It's really almost like a prayer. I don't ever want anybody to think I'm saying, God loves Bitcoin and God wants you to buy Bitcoin. That's not what this film is about at all. This film is about, could you help us out, please? We're messed up down here. If this is it, please bless it, please.
That's beautifully said. I mean, that's actually a perfect place to sort of wrap up. So any final thoughts, call to action, anything else you want to share that you haven't?
We do have a call to action. If you watch this, could you please share it? You can download it. It's free. Encourage people to watch it. We want to get 1 billion views. We know that's big, but why not? Why not go big? And I think if everybody could, even if you just share it with one person, great. The more, that's all we ask of you, is share.
And if you're not coming to the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, July 25th through the 27th, we'd come down, watch the movie, come learn what Bitcoin's about.
Yeah, so it's a great community.
Yeah, we've been going to Bitcoin conferences for years, and I think there's going to be 25,000 people there this year. That's what's estimated, and it's come learn.
Yep,
that's all we're asking. Come learn.
Come learn.
Thank you so much to both of you. I'm so honored not only to be in the movie, but to just be friends with you. It's been an incredible journey. Everyone, make sure to check out God Bless Bitcoin. Again, it will be shared on every platform, but come out to Nashville, see it in person. Kelly's going to be at the Women of Bitcoin brunch. You can still get your tickets, b.tc/conference. Use code HODL. And make sure you're subscribed to this show as well as my newsletter, nataliebrunel.substack.com, so you have all the updates. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Coin Stories. If you're listening on the Fountain app, you can show your support and share your thoughts by sending a boost. Last month's top episode was a Bitcoin and macro hangout featuring Preston Pish, James Lavish, Susie Riley, and special guest Luke Groman. At Ryan Reynolds boosted 500 sats and said, "These hangouts are awesome. Please keep them going." I love reading and replying to your boosts, so download Fountain on iOS or Android today and make sure you subscribe to Coin Stories. This show is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Nothing should constitute as official investment advice, and you should always do your own research. My inbox is open. If you want to share feedback or guest suggestions, just reach out at natalie@talkingbitcoin.com. Make sure you're subscribed to the show and check out my free newsletter, nataliebrunel.substack.com. I'll see you next time.